Which statement about the graph of y equals 16 times 0.5 raised to the power of x is not true? So the first thing that I'm going to do right away is get my graphing calculator, and we're going to put this equation into y equals. So I'm going to type 16 parentheses 0.5 raised to the power of x. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and graph this. And I'm just going to zoom out really quick so I can see it a little bit better. Okay. All right. So now we can see our graph. Let's go ahead and go through the answer choices. So letter A says the y-intercept is 0, 16. All right. So that could be true. I'm going to go to my table just to double check. And I see that whenever x is equal to 0, y is equal to 16. So that is the y-intercept. But we want an answer choice that is not true. So that is not going to be our answer. All right, letter B says the graph is decreasing for all values of x. And so just from looking at our graph, I would say that that is true, okay? It's decreasing as we go from left to right, and then it's getting closer and closer to the x-axis, but it is decreasing. It's just so small that you can hardly see it. So yes, that is true, so that's not going to be our answer. Letter C, the x-intercept is 0.5, 0. So yeah, just from looking at this graph, I can tell you that the x-intercept is definitely not 0.5. And actually, this graph doesn't have an x-intercept because it never fully touches the x-axis. So letter C is not true, so I'm thinking that that's probably our answer. But let's look at letter D. It says the graph has a horizontal asymptote at y equals 0. And so a horizontal asymptote is just kind of like a boundary that the graph gets closer and closer to, but never actually touches. And so if we look at our graph, so y equals 0 is basically the x-axis, okay? And we can see that our graph gets closer to the x-axis, and if we were to zoom in, we would see it gets closer and closer, but it never actually touches. And I can back that up by looking at my table. And as the x values increase, notice that our y values get smaller and smaller, but they're never actually 0. They're just very small decimals. So letter D is correct, but we want an answer choice that is not true. And so our correct answer is letter C.